All right, so today is going to be the conclusion. We're going to finish this teaching on the fear of Yahweh. It's part 7. So we're in part 7 of the fear of Yahweh, and I want to cover a few things here as we wrap it up. I want to cover a little bit about how we develop the fear of Yahweh. I want to talk a little bit about Yahweh will test and prove us to see if we fear him, and then we're going to wrap it up with some concluding verses. We have to get our ears to attend to and our heart to be inclined towards what's being given. See, this goes completely against what unfortunately is being taught often in the mainstream, which is that it's all going to be done for you. And here the wording is very much actively, from a participation point of view, it's very actively in your hands. You have to actively participate. You have to incline your heart. You have to attend your ear. That's an active listening, an active hearing, an active receiving in your heart. Okay, so this is all stuff that you have to do. He's not going to do for you. However, if you will do these things, he says, if you accept my words and treasure up my commands so that you make your ear attend and incline your heart, he says, if you cry for discernment, lift up your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as hidden treasures, wow, that sounds like a lot of effort. Yes, and it is. And it's supposed to be, because haven't you always been taught in your life that the greatest things take the most effort? You know, the greater the effort, the greater the gain, so to speak. Well, we're going after the greatest thing that's ever been offered. Shouldn't there be effort made there for that? If you would do these things, then you would understand righteousness. So I know a lot of you struggle, not necessarily in this room, but people that are watching on video or whatever they're watching on or listening on, struggle with some of the commandments, struggle with obedience and submission to authority of the commandments. And part of that, I think, is because of this. You haven't done this other stuff first, so therefore you don't understand righteousness. And so a lot of people will say to me, well, I'm not doing that because I don't understand it. See, but you don't have to understand it. What you have to understand is this rest of this stuff. If you understand the rest of this stuff, you'll start to understand it. Because you'll also understand that you don't have to understand. I know that maybe sounded a little strange, but you'll come to realize and understand that you don't have to understand. You have to understand all the other stuff here, the stuff that's driving you, what's motivating you, that fear of Yahweh part, and then you trust. And if you would just trust, you don't need to understand all the details of the why. But this is the level that the mainstream church has gone to in many segments of them, where I listen all the time on the radio, wherever it is, and I catch them where they're saying how it's actually wrong and offensive to the Messiah that you keep these things. Well, I would think it's the opposite. He'd be offended because you don't keep these things. He died because they weren't keeping these things. So why would he be anything but offended that after dying because you didn't keep them, that now you're still not keeping them? He didn't die so you don't have to keep them. He died because you were breaking something. You were sinning. Sin is the transgression of the law. Okay, so the easiest way to fix the problem is let's just get rid of the law, then we're not in sin anymore. Okay, in Mishlei 30, verse 5, it says, every word of Elohah is tried. He is a shield to those that take refuge in him. Do not add to his words, lest he reprove you and you be found a liar. Oh boy. Anybody want to risk that? So be careful. Don't add or take away from his words, lest he reprove you. Because otherwise he says you're going to be a liar. Doesn't this go back to 1 John where he says those who say they know him and do not keep his commands are liars? See how these all connect? I'm sure John was thinking about this when he wrote that. There's a connection there. So I would recommend that you have a copy of your scriptures in front of you. You have paper that you're writing, and I recommend you write and not type. There's something about actually writing it. Don't care. It doesn't matter how pretty you make it. The point is you're writing it. I would recommend that you're reading it, you're writing it. I would recommend you read it out loud as you're writing it. So you're reading it, you're saying it, you're writing it, you're looking at it. You've got all these inputs engaged. And that would be the way that I would write the Torah. Remember that all of this is so that you would then read it all the days of your life. So not only should you write it out the one time, but then you should read it. Now, of course, in those days, they didn't have the printing presses and all these things that we have today and the digital versions of these things. But you should be reading. You don't have to read your copy, but just read a copy every day. Read some of it every day. You should be reading the Word every day. And I would venture to guess that there are people still even in this room that don't do that. Now, I want you to receive from now on, when you read verses where it says, to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, that is not only literal, that is an allegory or a metaphor or a hint at what's going to happen in the kingdom. Okay, it's not just talking about when they were physically going into the land of Israel. He says, but this is what he's talking about. Was there any doubt in your mind that commandments are going to be kept in the kingdom? So that's the land you're passing over to possess. There's all kinds of stuff happening in your life right now because you're not listening. That's just a fact. I hate to, actually I don't. I don't hate to be blunt. You need to hear this. Okay? Get on your knees, get on your face and say, Abba, what is going on in my life that would be fixed and set straight if I would just start listening? Where am I not listening? Where am I still sitting on the throne making my own choices and decisions and not listening to you? Because some of what you're suffering from is reproof. Some of it's just time and chance. You know what? If you don't know which is which, get on your knees and ask him, is this a reproof? Are you trying to get my attention? Unite my heart. See, you have a divided heart. It's divided between what Yahweh wants and what you want. He's saying, unite my heart so that what I want is what you want. See, but you know what Christianity has done in every possible man-made system has tried to then unite what he wants into what I want instead of what I want into what he wants. So we turn what I want into what he wants instead of turning, you know what I'm saying? We twist what he wants so that it matches us instead of twisting us to match him. We mold him into what we want. So we alter the way commandments are kept, and we bend and twist the way instructions are to be understood so that it matches what I want. Right? That inner eye that wants things a certain way. And that's where we end up with all kinds of disastrous mess. That's where you end up with the law was done away with. You don't have to keep that stuff anymore. Because you know why? It clashes with what I want. I mean, there are people that I know right now that are in the Messianic, Hebrew roots, Torah observant, whatever, that are thinking it's a wonderful thing to go to their local churches and wrap Christmas presents for charity. I'm not making that up. Ministries right here in this town that are doing that. And other places. But they don't see any reason that that's a problem with that. Do you see a problem with that? But they don't. When I first found out about it, they had their children doing it. And they said, well, we want our children to learn about charity. Fine. Have them go give presents to children in like February or April or some other time that has nothing to do with nothing. Why have them wrapping Christmas presents and helping to be a part of clearly a false thing? Why are you letting your children participate in that and then being excited about it? Oh, but there are. Stop doing that. I know people that thought it was a good thing to give away candy on Halloween because they gave them tracts while they did it. Or they tried to say something about Yahweh when they did it. No, you can't mix these things. Amen. Stop mixing. Because that's where there's no integrity. Amen. And I know, and people make these cases and they try to convince me and they do the best they can to spin and whatever. I'm not having it. Because I don't think he's having it. Okay? I'm not having it. Oh, but we're new in our neighborhood and we just want to make sure we're being, stop. He says in Ecclesiastes 12, Kohelet 12 and verse 13, let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear Elohim and guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. Oh, that's that Jewish stuff, really? It says this applies to all mankind. Oh, that's just for Israel. No, this applies to all mankind. The conclusion of the entire matter is to fear Elohim and guard his commands, for this applies to all mankind. For Elohim shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil, and you can't spin and justify doing what you want when it's not right according to him.